Hello, I am so excited to share this week's episode with you today. It was a very witchy and magical episode where we talked about archetypes within male sexuality. We also talked about a little bit of the kind of like similarities with female sexuality. We talked about looking and using archetypes in general for different areas of life and how they show up for you, whether you're male, female, gender fluid, or non binary. And it was very beautiful. We just hung up, and I'm so excited to introduce Nats to you. Nathalie Gaglione is a VITA accredited intimacy, love, and relationship coach. She is passionate about guiding people back into the temple of their bodies, allowing them to experience deep levels of intimacy with life, themselves, and others. She offers her clients permission to be their authentic self in a safe, loving, compassionate, and a non-judgmental container where they can offer their own truth, wisdom, beauty, and vibrancy. Ultimately, Nathalie's main goal and intention is to guide her clients back to the truth of who they really are. And right now, she's very focused on one-on-one work with men as of the time of this recording. And there will be links in the show notes and towards the end of the episode. She will tell you about her work, who she works with, where to find her, where to follow her, how to work with her, and all of those things. And without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. I love that. That's a really good one. Good for grounding. I'm recording already.
Perfect. We entered the time portal, baby, where it just time is illusory, it doesn't exist.
Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen within your relationships, your work, and most importantly, with the relationship with yourself. In this podcast, we talk about all things self-love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, and more. Hi, I'm your host, Celia Antonio, and I'm a women's sexuality and self-love coach, a mindfulness expert, and your cheerleader for your most grounded and expansive self-expression. You can connect with me on Instagram at self-expressedbabe, and for all of my guest episodes, there will always be links in the show notes so that you can find them online. I give my deepest thanks to you for being here and spending your precious time with me today. Now let's begin our journey. It's morning by me. I'm like drinking coffee, don't have makeup on, sleepy face. I didn't even brush my hair yet today.
You still look awesome though.
Oh, thank you. What time is it by you? It's like evening? It looks dark.
It's 5. It's not dark yet. It's 5 o'clock. I had a beautiful walk today. Been walking in the forest and near the sea. So yeah. Feeling
that sounds nice.
Feeling
and
nice.
You're in Scotland?
I'm in Scotland, yes, correct.
Oh my gosh. The forest by the sea in Scotland. That sounds divine.
Yeah.
My husband and I are moving in like about 8 months to Ohio from where we're at now, California. And where we're at now, it's like really, it's beautiful, but it's like really dry and deserty, and where we're moving to has like more forest. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm a forest girl.
Yeah. Forests have beautiful energy, and we were foraging mushrooms because it's the season for them now, and we foraged chanterelles, and
oh my gosh,
we just ate them like for dinner. You know, like we picked them straight in our pan, and yeah, there's just something about, you know, the fruits of the forest. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Very, very nice. Yeah, my husband was just in Minnesota unexpectedly 2 weeks ago because he got stuck in Canada and he had to like drive into Minnesota to fly home. And he said there were chanterelles everywhere. He's like, I don't think the people in Minnesota know what chanterelle mushrooms are and that like you can eat them, because a lot of people are just scared of mushrooms that they find.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, you know, once you do research and you learn like how to identify them, it's actually really easy to discover like which ones can you eat and which ones will kill you.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's lots
or
of
poison you.
Yeah, it's easy to find the research. I mean, just a YouTube
Yeah.
video, because there are copycat chanterelles as well. So there's fake ones that look like them but have slight differences. But one
Mm-hmm.
YouTube video will let you know exactly what to look out for. So yeah, there's free
Mm.
food everywhere, really, if you learn how
There
to
is. Even
forage.
here, we're like in the city,
Mm.
and there's this one area where I think like next month is when this is in season, but you can find chicken of the woods mushrooms just
Oh,
like in the trees
yeah.
in the middle of the city. Like there's like cars driving by real fast, and
Hmm.
like no one knows, and there's like all this mushroom that nobody's foraging because nobody knows that you
Yeah.
can eat it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really good.
It really connects when you're connected to abundance, and it's
Mm,
an energetic I've been connecting to more and more. You start to
yes.
notice abundance everywhere, once you connect to it, and then you start to realize how much of a slave culture we're in this lack mentality, when in fact there's so much abundance everywhere. You can have free food, free electricity, even if you know how to harness it.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to realize, oh, how did we end up in this mess? And when actually there's so much that is bountiful and available, and all we have to do is just know where to look, and be aware of it. So yeah, it's a huge mind shift, I think, once you tune into that force.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Ooh, I did not expect to talk about that when we hit record, and I love it so much.
Expect the unexpected with Nat.
Let us know if anyone is listening to the audio on YouTube in the comments if you like to forage for mushrooms and if you like the forest. Yeah, so we're just kind of going to flow today, but one of the things we wanted to talk about were the archetypes within male sacred sexuality and also within female sacred sexuality, and to kind of like, I don't know, play with them, compare them, see the differences, the similarities, and yeah. So where would you like to start with that?
Well, I'd like to say first off, there's several archetypes, right? There's archetypes that I would say are the traditional ones, or the ones that are most spoken about. And a very well-known book by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And as far as male archetypes go, those are usually the main ones spoken about. And there's
Mm-hmm.
equivalent to those for women as well. I think it's Queen. Interestingly, the equivalent of warrior is mother, which I found really interesting. The
I'm
equiv
not surprised because of that like mama bear energy that people
Yeah,
talk about.
yeah,
Mama bear is definitely like a warrior or
yeah.
like a mama wolf.
Hmm. Yeah. And you see that a lot, even in when all animals really protect their young, and that's, as you're saying, that protection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the warrior energy is about, is protecting the tribe, is making sure there's that safety through I guess aggression comes in, but the aggression is the intention there is protecting your loved ones. And yes, the mother
Mm.
energy there is definitely strong with. And then for magician, it's wise woman, or the wisdom keeper. And
Mm-hmm.
lover is the same for both men and women, lover. So yeah, but as I said, there's several other archetypes. You could be the judger. You could even embody animals. You could be the lion. You could be
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, the eagle, or there are sexual archetypes you can even embody through role play. You could be, the seductress, or the teaser, or you could be the ravisher. Or you could be the mischievous, lover. So yeah, and archetypes are really ways of exploring different facets of our personality and to actually give them a voice, to really embody all aspects of ourselves in ways that we can then understand, okay, this is my queen energy coming in, or this is my king energy coming in, and to not really just feel that we are identifying with one and that we have several within us.
Yeah.
And then also realizing that when we feel trapped in an energy that might not be, comfortable, like recently I was stuck in my anger, like I had real rage within me. And I was beginning to spiral in that thought loop where I began to identify with it. I'm like, oh, I must be an angry person because I have all this rage. But no, it's just the archetype, that's a fierce lioness within me that was, had her boundaries crossed, and therefore, she came out. And it's understanding that, all these, strong emotions that come up within us, when we link them to an archetype, we tend to begin to understand them more and begin to work with them a bit more and understand, because every archetype has a shadow. You can have, the integrated side of it and the shadow side. So looking at where's the shadow, how am I, expressing that shadow, how do I come to the integrated part of this archetype? Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about, what's your take on the archetypes?
Well, I love what you just said about how it's like easier to understand when you put it into archetypes because not only can you explore what's the shadow side and what's the more integrated side, but you can kind of observe yourself in a more objective way. Like instead of being like I am anger, it's like I'm feeling anger. Like this is what's flowing through me, and it gives you a little bit of more freedom to allow it to flow and allow that to be okay that it's here. Because I think with a lot of emotions, I don't work with men, so I'm not sure if men feel this, but I know that women have a really hard time feeling rage and like being able to be angry, and like even like whether you're a man, woman, or like gender fluid or non-binary, I think everyone also has a little bit of struggle with feeling like these emotions that we label as negative. And I think when you can put that all into an archetype, like you just said, it kind of lets you look at it from different angles. Like, what's the shadow? What's the integration? Like, what's the invitation here? What is this here to teach me? Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah.
And then it looked like you were going to share something. So before I share my next thought.
It also helps us understand people better, or at least, how can I say, when we find ourselves judging others, and we all do it to a certain extent. A little bit of judgment is
and
healthy.
Ourselves.
Yeah, we judge ourselves a lot, we judge others. And I find, especially, I want to really, highlight current affairs in the world and all that we see in the media and the leaders that are really taking us, to places that are very unintegrated. And we are quick to judge, right? To judge the leaders, to judge the people that are causing friction and causing polarity and war. And it's really easy to, project maybe a shadow part of yourself. Like the unintegrated warrior would be the masochist or a sadist. So it would be inflicting that, aggression onto others. And the thing is, when you start to understand the lack of initiation that we've had or we've not had in our culture, I'm gonna focus on men but this is equal to men and women, and again, people of all genders. There hasn't been, first of all, we're not grown up with elders, and when I say elders, it's not just people of a certain age, it's people of a certain age and wisdom. So people who have not only had the experience of, a longer life, but also have done that inner work, have a connection maybe to spirit, or have that really, how can I say, that wisdom that they can pass on to the next generation. And with that, there's also a combination of initiation for the younger generation. So when both men and women are at a certain point in their life, usually I would say, in puberty, you are taken on initiation. So you're put through almost like a challenge where there's a death of the ego, and then you are given blessing by the elders to step into that adulthood and really leave behind that adolescent energy of the grabbing or the lack of empathy, or all basically the unintegrated aspects that we see playing out today in our leaders who look like adults but are actually expressing adolescent energy.
Or even younger than adolescents sometimes,
yeah, exactly. Like I like to call them, well, it's not my term, but I really like the term high chair tyrants.
Oh wow, I've never heard that before. That's really funny.
Yeah, so it's in the book actually, Robert Moore's this book I mentioned. He says, the high chair tyrant is basically, if you think of a baby on a high chair demanding everything, I want this, I want that, and throwing tantrums whenever they don't get their way. And as soon as I read that, I was thinking of, the American leaders, or, most of the leaders we see today. I'm like, oh my God, that sounds so much like, like this person and that person. So yeah, that's the thing. There's this lack of that stage of leaving behind a certain, stage of life and moving into the other. And because we haven't had that, we are stuck and we kind of repeat these loops. And, I'm looking at the world today, I'm looking at the stage, and all I see is, children and adolescents really running the show, wanting to grab for personal needs and not really serve in a way that is taking into consideration the rest of the people that might be affected by their decisions. And and even though it doesn't really, I don't want it to condone any of their behavior, it just helps me understand why it is so, like, why are these people acting this way? Well, there hasn't been that, that tribe mentality of having that wisdom passed on, having them initiated into adulthood, having them break down the ego, or have that, ego death. So here we are, and this is how we are suffering the consequences of that.
Yeah, we kind of go through that initiation on our own, like our bodies somehow initiate us. Like for boys, like they start like getting erections, and it's like, oh, okay. And then, they really only have usually their friends to talk about what they're going through. Some of us are lucky enough to have, parents who are safe people for us to ask questions to, and who like, and I feel like our bodies kind of initiate us in that way, but the elder piece is definitely missing. And like elders aren't even like respected in our society or seen as sacred. Like you're kind of just, there's such an obsession with being young in our culture.
Yeah.
And there's such a, like, I remember when I was a teenager, and I actually asked this to my husband the other day because I thought it was only a thing that girls go through. I was like, when you were in high school, were you already concerned about aging? And he's like, yeah, I was. And I'm like, that's so weird. I thought it was only for girls. Like, I remember I was like wearing sunblock to school so that I wouldn't get like premature wrinkles. And I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah. I mean, there are kids, I call them kids, but yeah, late teens, early 20s getting Botox, and having quite extreme procedures because of the very same thing. And exactly, these are messages that are constantly given, to all genders and everything in between, that aging is something to avoid because, as you said, it's so disrespected almost. Like we put old people away. We don't want to see them. We don't want them, we don't want them to be visible. We don't want to hear what they have to say. And that's the severance that I'm talking about, because we have now severed ourselves from the people who actually have more of that wisdom that we desperately need in order for us to make sense of what's happening to us, of make sense to what's happening to the world, to connect us back to ourselves and each other. And part of me says maybe there's an intention, for that. They're intentionally being kept away because it might be a bit of a threat to the powers that be if the people actually had that connection again, and then we're less easy to control that way, aren't we? So
yeah, for sure. Like earlier you were saying something about like how we're in kind of like a slave kind of culture. And I feel weird saying that because I know slaves, are an actual thing that's much worse, and I don't mean to downplay that. But like when you think about how we're told not to avoid aging, it's impossible to avoid aging. So when we're taught to avoid aging, like so hard, like that just keeps us spending money, and it keeps us in this consumerism of like buying the Botox, buying the eye creams and the face masks and all the things, whatever all the things are. There's a ton of I'm sure the anti-aging business is $1 billion business. Don't quote me on that. I have not Googled it.
Yeah.
And like what this reminds me of too is how we're so afraid of death as well. And we're so afraid of like everything that you're saying about this, like leaving behind a stage of life to move on to the next, reminds me of the seasons and how we're kind of, as a society, more comfortable staying in the summertime and like being productive and like doing things and like that youngness. But then when it comes to winter, like that's where all the wisdom is. And that's where all the like, it's like dark. A lot of us get like, I know I get like seasonal depression when I used to live in Connecticut, and it would be like dark at 2 or 3 p.m. and it really can get to you.
Yeah.
And like we avoid that, but there's so much potency and wisdom in there if you welcome that in, and it prepares you for the spring and for the summer. And like because the seasons are also a continuous wheel, I wonder if like when you said the piece about like leaving adolescence behind, I wonder if it's not so much of leaving it behind completely, and if like you can kind of come back to it in waves. I don't know if that's a part of it or not. Like staying connected to like the inner child in a way. Does that make sense what I'm asking? I don't know if I'm wording it right.
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. I think it's bringing that playfulness to it, right? And it's still having that energy of the beginner's mind, the creativity, the playfulness and the energy of youth, which is it's what drives a lot of our creation. And it's also life force energy, right? And that's very sexual energy as well. And sexual energy at its prime is within the youth as well, and you see that in all aspects of life. You see that in nature all the time. And as things start to age, then that life force starts to retreat in a way. So yes, it's important to connect back to that type of energy, that adolescence, that youth. I think the purpose of those initiations is really to overcome the shadow parts of these life transitions. So
that makes sense.
we don't carry the shadow part to our next stage, right? And we keep the beautiful parts, the integrated parts, but we need to work on so for example, the shadow of the king is there's two shadows to each archetype. So, and they're in polar opposites. So a true king actually is one who serves the people he is, in his kingdom. So he's not there for power, for his own power. He's there to channel in a higher power. So it's actually connected to the divine in order to serve the people that have not put him into power, but chose him as the representative to be the connection between the divine and the human, right? So it's that responsibility of taking up this otherworldly role. So the king energy, when a human being becomes king, they're the custodian of the king energy when it's a healthy relationship. When it's unhealthy and they become the tyrant, they own that energy. So they actually feel that I'm the divine, I'm God, because I am king. And so that's the shadow part, right? It's that feeling of kind of owning that and feeling that you are high and mighty, when in fact, in reality, that energy, you should be the custodian of it and serving the people that you are in your kingdom. And then on the flip side to that, there's the weakling. So it would be that king that doesn't want to take responsibility, that shies away from, stepping up there and actually ruling or making sure his kingdom is safe or is provided for. And again, I again think of several examples, from our leaders and people in power on both sides of that coin. So again, we can see that the shadow parts come up a lot because of this lack of initiations throughout life. And it's the same with the warrior. So the warrior spirit in its integrity is actually a transpersonal one. So you're actually fighting for something, again, other than yourself. It could be a greater cause, or it could be a divine spirit, or it could be for your family, or it could be something like we're fighting for something other than our own personal gain. And therefore the shadow is either a masochist, where you have that, I'm fighting because I enjoy seeing other people suffer, or the sadist. Actually, it's the other way around. Masochist is self-destructive. So when a warrior is self-destructive, that would be the masochist part, or else it's the sadist, or they really enjoy hurting others for the sake of hurting others, nothing else. And we see that in the magician as well. So magician would be the wisdom keeper, and the shadow part of that will be the manipulator. So someone who has the knowledge, and I'm sure you're thinking of examples as well in real life, but the people who have the knowledge but are manipulating you to think that they don't, or try to veer you in the other direction with facts and figures, when in fact they have the real knowledge and are using it for their own personal gain. Or else on the flip side to that will be, I think it's the one that tries to pretend they don't know. So they know, but they pretend that they don't. Again, it's all for personal gain. So, yeah, and then I think the lover is either the shadow part would be the selfish lover that just wants to take from their other lover. So I'm just here for my own pleasure, not for yours. So that's a selfish lover, or else the impotent lover who cannot connect, and withdraws. So yeah, all these, the shadow parts are really what comes out in all aspects of our life, because there hasn't been an awareness and initiation to really bring us into integrity so that we can express these in the more healthier ways. But yeah.
And it sounds like with each archetype, when the shadow is integrated and digested, they all seem to be coming from a place of serving something bigger than themselves. Like the king is serving his kingdom. The magician is like freely giving the wisdom. The lover is like giving to their lover. And the warrior is fighting for something bigger than itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on. Yeah. Yeah, so that thing, exactly what you're saying, it's that awareness of really coming into oneness with everything else and serving the community that you're in a way that is not self-serving. So their energies, when you see a really conscious man, for example, you can see all these archetypes within him where he is serving for the good of others in everything he does, whether he's a lover, whether he's expressing his wisdom, whether he's fighting for his family, for example, or whether he's in presence and authority. When this energy comes through, where you see he's actually not doing it for himself, he's doing it for his community, his family, his tribe, then that is the integrated part. And it's very attractive, right? It's something that is naturally recognized without even knowing about archetypes. You don't need to know about it, but you feel it. You can
feel it, exactly. Yeah. So I feel like when we talk about this piece about like serving something bigger than yourself, I feel like we can't have this conversation and not talk about the ego and like how to integrate the ego. Because I think a lot of people, and I come from a background of like teaching yoga, and even in the yoga community, there's a lot of narrative of drop your ego and like labeling the ego as like bad and like getting rid of your ego, but that's impossible. Yeah, so I'd love to know your thoughts on ego and like if that's something that you kind of like have thought about with like weaving into these archetypes.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I haven't specifically thought about it, but I can bring definitely insight from your question. I don't think we should get rid of the ego. Is necessary. The ego's job is survival, right? We cannot really survive without it. So
the ego is kind of like our little warrior.
Yes, exactly. So it's doing its job to keep us alive, to keep us safe, to make sure, we have everything we need. So it's definitely necessary. Now, there is a lot to say around how out of control that ego can get and how manipulative it can get, and in what rabbit holes it takes us in, and and all of that. So I guess the work here, when we look at all these archetypes and how to integrate them, is to befriend the ego in a way that there's this respect and honor for its job as keeping us alive, but also then having that witness of how it can trick us at certain points,
Yeah.
to make us believe that we need something, or that we cannot live without something, or that it's necessary to have control over others, because otherwise we cannot survive. So it's really understanding the workings of the ego through a witnessing space, and that, I mean, that can take many forms. And in my experience, connecting with a divine source, or with a higher self, or something that is other than my human form, really helps me look at the ego from a place that makes my best decisions are made from that place, so to speak, where I can, look at it from the outside. But when it comes to these type of archetypes, it's, again, because we're doing it for a greater good, or for something other than ourselves, we need to really look at the ego and say, okay, I know you're trying to help me survive here, and I know you're doing the best you can to make sure everything is there to keep me alive. However, this is where I need to step into that higher power. And when I say higher power, an internal higher power. So, and again, can take many forms: higher self, your divine self, or it could be anything really. An empowered peace within you, where you feel a connection with something other than just yourself. And when you start to feel that you are connected to all that there is, whether that's, nature, human beings, the skies, the earth, when you really connect to that fiber of life, that you're actually a part of it, that really humbles the ego in a way that, there's no way for it to really argue with that. There's no way to disprove it from the ego's perspective. But however, being savvy to the fact that it's going to try to convince you otherwise.
Yes.
So it's a game, it's a dance, actually. It's really a dance. Really catching yourself whenever the ego comes in to say, actually, no, we have to do this for ourselves. Actually, no, we need more power. We need to hoard. We need to bring in for us. We need to, we're separate. We're individual. That, can become destructive. And it's that practice of awareness, practice of the looking from the outside, practice of the connection. Practice also of somatic. I'm a big, believer in somatic work, and really listening to the body, because the body never lies, yet our mind is constantly lying to us. And, I associate the ego with the mind space, and the body with more of a divine space. So connecting to the body is also a way of helping to not transcend the ego, but to come to a deeper truth where you are not swayed by the manipulations of the ego. So yeah, there are ways to, to move out of it and listen, but not to let it go. I don't really believe in that, in, killing it completely. And there's definitely a need for it.
Yeah. Especially because if you do welcome it, and you do like what you said about saying, I see that you're trying to just help me survive, I feel like it softens it a bit. Whereas if you're trying to let it go and you're rejecting it, it's just going to get louder.
Yeah. And you're rejecting a part of yourself if you do that, right? And you cannot really live a life in true integrity if you're rejecting parts of yourself. And this brings me back to what you mentioned about winter, right? And about darkness, and about our shadows, because they are just as sacred as our integral parts, and our light, and our, and all the beautiful things about us. And that's what our culture has perhaps programmed us to to look at these parts as wrong, or we should ignore them, or we should transcend them and we should let them go, when actually there is so much gold in these shadow parts. They teach us so much. And I like to take, nature is a great teacher for me. I like to look at the trees in winter and through all the seasons, really, especially this time of year in autumn when they let go of the leaves and they look like they're about to die, right? They turn brown and then the leaves fall off and then they're just a bunch of twigs and they look really horrible. Or they don't look as beautiful as they do in the summer. But deep down in the roots, underground, magic alchemy is happening, They are preparing actually to grow bigger and stronger with deeper roots and longer branches. And that is exactly, synonymous with what we go through during the winter season, like going inward, looking at our shadows, really sitting with them, understanding what they're trying to teach us, understanding what they're showing us about ourselves. It's such necessary work. And it's just as beautiful as the moments of springtime and summer, and when we're at our best and at our fullest. Yeah, and that's a deep expression of the feminine as well, isn't it? The darkness and the going inward and being in that dark space. Yeah, it's like a womb. The womb space is dark.
It is like a womb. Yeah. Yeah, it's dark and you're receiving nourishment. Like when you mentioned about the trees deep in the roots are like preparing to grow bigger. There's also all those leaves on the ground that fell off and they're like decaying and they become like nutrients for the soil.
Yeah, exactly. And those would be, the parts of ourselves maybe that all the shadow parts we've let go are actually nourishing us into growth. And that's the thing, for us to help us grow, we really need to befriend these shadows and really, understand what they're trying to teach us, because then we're able to grow our branches longer and our roots deeper once we do that.
Yeah. And also what's cool is like that winter season does not have to happen for you internally when it is winter externally wherever you live. Like it can happen at any time. And I think it's just about recognizing that that's happening and like holding space for what you need.
Yeah, 100%. And it took me a while to learn that, actually, because I'm like, well, I'm one with nature. So if nature is winter, I have to be in winter, and if it's summer, I have. So there was this pressure for me, especially in summertime, that I had to be productive and active and, be outside and create and do this and do that. And there'll be moments where I don't feel that way at all. I just want to retreat and just be inside and just be introspective. And I almost did not give myself permission to do that, because I thought, well, it's summer, so I have to, be in this.
Totally relate
summer.
to you.
Yeah. But as you're saying, it's a matter of respecting where you are at any point in time. Whatever, the external world is doing is, and we're cyclical beings, so we can have all 4 seasons in one day sometimes. So, we'll have moments of internal winter when it's externally summer, and vice versa. I've had most of my productive times have been in deep winter, where I'm indoors with the fire on and I'm on my laptop and I'm creating all this stuff. And like, So yeah.
I have a question relating back to the archetypes and male sacred sexuality. I would love to know, in your opinion, like how each archetype nourishes man's or a masculine identifying person's life force. You described it as like life force, this like eroticism is like a life force. I'm curious to know what you think about that.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, so first of all, they all need to be present. So one feeds into the other, right? You cannot have, if you have a man that is in his healthy king but has an unhealthy lover or magician, then he's still not in integrity, there's still not that connection of that end. So they all need to be in balance, let's say, and they all feed into each other. To me, so the king is about presence and authority. So if a man is able to be present in his body, and especially if we're going to, specifically talk about sexuality within a sexual experience or a sexual encounter, it's about how he shows up and how he's present in his body to his partner, lover, the person he is with. He's not thinking about something else, or he's not worried about performance, let's say. I think that's a big one with men, that there's this belief that they need to perform, and it's how long they can last, and it's how much pleasure they give to their lover, how many positions they know, or how many orgasms they can give. And that's all well and good. It's good to have that, but it's not about that. If that is the goal, then you are not present. You're thinking of maybe trying to control your body in a way that keeps you lasting longer, or makes you think of,
rather than enjoying the pleasure and the moment and the connection.
Exactly. They also might be judging themselves at that time as well. If they oh, am I doing this right? Is she or he or they thinking that this has been too short, or it hasn't lasted that long, or maybe I'm not hard enough, or all of these things run through their heads, which makes it the experience cerebral. And if it's cerebral, then they're not in their bodies. And if they're not in their bodies, they're not present there at that very moment. So that is king energy. And king energy is the man who is present in his body completely, where he is aware of all the sensations, all the feelings, all the images and the thoughts, and is really present with himself, and therefore present with his lover at the time. And also authority, which I really love. And I guess there's negative connotations with the word authority, but I'm talking about that personal authority where it comes through as, this confidence. Now, I'm gonna, take you places you've never been, and
I'm gonna take you to Pleasure Town.
Exactly. Absolutely. This truly knowing their potency, and I'm like, I'm gonna take control here, and I'm gonna take you I'm taking control of this again, not in a way that is overpowering or undermining or overwhelming, but that inner confidence that says, I have complete control of myself, of my body, and I know exactly how to bring you, the pleasure that you're seeking, or for us to connect that way. So I think king energy is beautiful, especially in sexuality, when you have both those qualities in a person. And then
sounds really hot.
It is, isn't it? Yes. I absolutely I love that. The moment I've started to really look into these archetypes, the more I see them in my partner. Because when you're unaware of them, even though you might have a sense of them, you cannot exactly pinpoint it, or or say, oh, that's the king energy coming through. That's so hot. But yeah, they're even this is for I really love to share this wisdom with women so that they can really understand their male partners better and understand, you know, these archetypes within them. So the warrior, for example, so the warrior is about protection, and there is aggression there, but it's that healthy aggression. And this is the ravishing energy. And this is, you know, something that not all women would admit, but it's something that we really love about, you know, our male partners when they just take us and just have their way with us, again, in a way that's loving, right? It has to be connected to the heart. And it's that primal raw kind of sexual energy. And again, this I'm talking about the integrated side, the warrior, because it could turn, if it's not integrated, as we saw, it could turn into sadist energy, you know, where they actually harm the person they're with. But the integrated part, that warrior spirit, that yeah, I will fight for you, you know, I will come hell or high water, I will do whatever it takes to be with you, to have you. And that's again the most a very beautiful energy to have in a male partner. And then the magician, that's so a lot of the magician energy is intuition. And again, this is intuitively knowing where to take, you know, where to take the sexual experience, or intuitively knowing what your partner is wanting in that moment, or what pleasure they're seeking.
So there's that like non-verbal communication happening between two or more people.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, well, yeah, there's that, the intuition, but also it can be verbal as well. So it can be, because there's wisdom in that. So it's intuition and wisdom. So it could be something maybe that they share between them that is providing that perhaps that inner knowledge about themselves or about the relationship, and then intuitively knowing where to take that. So there is, you know, a mixture, I guess, between internal knowing and then communication, and then direction with that. And that again takes the sexual experience into, you know, it could take you to divine places actually, because then there's that, you know, wisdom of connecting to a divinity that you can bring into the sexual experience. So that also makes it quite magical. And then the lover is all about relating emotionally and working with men. Much of the work that I do is connecting their sexuality to their heart. And there seems to be, okay, it's stronger, at least I feel it's stronger in women. When a woman connects to a person sexually, there's actually an activation of the heart when that happens. And it doesn't happen so often in men. So when you have an integrated lover within the male body, it's a practice of actually connecting their sexuality to their heart. So when a man comes to you with their fuck energy, you know, and their ravishing energy, they're also doing that from the heart. So they're connecting with you emotionally, apart from really, you know, taking you to wild places as well. So combine all this. I mean, I must be describing the, you know, the most heavenly man here, but having, you know, presence, authority, ravishing, intuition, and connection from the heart. I mean, you know, that would explode any woman's brain. I think, you know, having all those energies met. And yeah, this is, you know, this is the work I do with men, is really helping them understand all these archetypes within them, all the shadow parts. How do they connect that to their sexuality? How can they show up loving from the heart and being in their bodies and being present and connecting to their intuition and connecting emotionally and still being able to, fuck with that ravishing spirit as well. It's a magical ride.
Yeah. I'm going to read this book now because it sounds really fun to learn about. And even learning more about female archetypes, I want to learn more about it now. I really only know the wild woman a little bit because of Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Yes. Beautiful.
But I took a couple of notes, and I find it interesting that I think there's a common similarity here between people in male and female bodies, is that practice of getting out of their head. It's when you were talking about how a lot of men deal with performance anxiety and they're in their head about what they're going to do and all that stuff. Women feel the same as well because of, porn culture and just the beauty standards. We're am I performing enough? There's also a sense of performance. And from women, when they're not in their bodies and they are in their head, then orgasm is impossible to reach. And then when you were talking about the confidence and the authority, and that was the king, I was just thinking about how a queen archetype sexually, she's confident about who she is. And when it comes to authority, she's probably someone who can tell her lover what she wants.
Yeah.
He or she or they will be what do you like in the bedroom? And she will know how to answer that question.
Yeah.
She'll be I want this, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's big. That point you just made is huge for women, because I meet a lot of women who expect men to just know what they want.
Exactly.
And
yeah,
I ask
exactly.
them, have you told them what you want? And they're like, no, they should know. How should they know? I mean, can you, have they had this education growing up? Can they read your mind? Or
we love to think that men can read our mind.
Yes,
across all areas of life.
Yeah, me too. No, and I mean, I'm guilty of this too, by the way. I find myself oh, why is he asking that question? He should know that. But when it comes to sexuality and pleasure, yes, you're right there. We lack that authority sometimes, and it has to do a lot with again, judging ourselves or having that performance anxiety that we should be receiving, and we shouldn't be telling or maybe being more authoritative. But it maybe boils down, and this is something again that I noticed about myself, is, do I actually know what I want? Do I actually know what brings me pleasure? Have I got a vocabulary for it? And that's another thing, because I might know, but I don't really know how to articulate it. So how am I then to express it to the lover I'm with? And then comes the confidence to express it.
Yes.
So it's in stages, right? First, understanding what it is that gives you pleasure, and then understanding how to articulate it, and then having the confidence to say to your lover, this is what I like, will you do this? Shall we engage in this, act or role play or whatever it is. So yeah, you're a beautiful point you made there, because we are also in that cerebral place, when we're thinking of this, and therefore, as you said, we're unable to experience pleasure and reach orgasm because we're thinking he's either going in the wrong place, and he's like, oh, he shouldn't be there, why is he there?
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
So this is really interesting. I love this conversation. It also kind of reminds me of I don't know if you've ever played with tarot cards.
I haven't played with them myself, but I have had a few readings, and I do follow. I don't know if you know Chris Sorini,
No.
but he's a big tarot card reader on Instagram, and I really follow him a lot. So I'm aware of
Yeah.
the arcanas and
Yeah.
most of the deck. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't follow anyone about tarot cards yet, but I recently got my first deck, and there is a card that's the king. There's like a king in all of the suits. There's a warrior card. No, there's not a warrior card. There's a lion card, which is like courage, and I guess it's kind of like warrior. And there is a magician card, so like it's just interesting to see like where else the archetypes pop up and how you can play with them.
Yeah. There's a lover card as well.
There's a lover card.
Yeah.
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 And the warrior card, I guess, is like there's each suit has a knight card.
Yeah.
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 Interesting things to play with.
They are, you're right. Because I think archetypes are universal, they're also quite cosmic. You can see these archetypes in planets as well if you follow astrology. Venus is the lover, for example. Mars is the judger, or is it Saturn? Yeah, I think Saturn is the judge. And there are certain planets that embody these archetypes too. And if you go deeper into astrology, you can understand that the way these energies of the planets influence the energies in the whole of the universe, they affect. And because we are part of that, then we understand that in certain alignments, we might be expressing more of warrior energy. I mean, the way the planetary and cosmic alignments are just now in this point in time in the world, there's a lot of warrior energy, and this is something we can see play out. There's this, if you take how the stars are aligned just now and compare it to how it was in other times of revolution, during the French Revolution and other times of revolution in human history, the alignments are the same. So the alignments, how they are now, are similar to how they were during the French Revolution. And I think there was, I forgot which other ones, but a point in time in human history where there was a lot of that warrior spirit, that fighting against the power, the unintegrated shadow power. So we are in that phase again, which to me is so interesting because we're going here from a microcosm when we talked maybe of the singular male during a sexual encounter to the macrocosm when we're talking cosmically and universe and how that plays out. And these energies are all we're so I'll find another word, but we're so interlinked. Yeah, and therefore we are affected by all of this energetically. And there are moments in time in human history where we've played out, the king energy, the lover energy, the magician. I mean, back in the times where there was a lot of emphasis on knowledge, I think during the Renaissance, for example, creativity, knowledge, wisdom, connecting with divine spirits. These were, more of the magician stage. I can think of maybe the sexual revolution as being more maybe of the lover, the lover archetype coming in. So yeah, they play out in so many facets, in so many ways, that it's just interesting because then they take an entity of their own. It's not just, you don't have to inhabit a human body to actually have or play out an archetype. There's something that is a sentient, almost energetic field that we tap into because we're part of that field, but are not exclusive to us. I don't know if that makes sense.
So what is a practice that maybe you can share for people listening who want to maybe, like maybe there's a certain archetype that's your favorite that you want to share a practice about, or something about like integrating all of them. I'm curious if there's anything that you'd like to kind of like explain here or give a link to. I don't know if you have a link to any practice or something.
I mean, there's several. They won't be mine. I haven't. I work one-on-one. I will be recording practices as I go along. So I've only just started working one-on-one with men on this work. And I'll be creating more recordings of practices. But ones that I can share with you right now, for example, for King energy, grounding practices really help for authority and presence. So anything that is grounding, it could be you even lying down on the earth, is just really getting you into the earth energy. It could be stomping, for example, just feeling, your feet really hit the ground and feeling that gravity and feeling your dominance in your body to be present there. And also exercises to be somatically present in your body. So feeling your sensations and just noticing what arises for you in that moment in time. So those would be, practices that you can do to inhabit King energy. Warrior energy, physical. It needs to be physical. So something like one practice I love is the primal practice, where you breathe in and out, and you extend your arms outward when you breathe out and inward when you breathe in, and you move your pelvis in and out this way. So you're moving your pelvis and breathing in and out and moving your arms in and out. And then as you breathe out, you let out a primal scream or shout. And then after you do that for a number of times, you instinctively act upon what's coming alive for you. So you might run on the ground, run on all fours, or run very fast in one direction, or jump up and down. Anything physical that really brings out that, energetic warrior within you. And then for magician, it's meditation and visualization. So anything that really helps you connect with your third eye, anything that visualizes kind of this centeredness within you, and really bringing in this, starting to bring in an awareness that you are more than just a physical body. There's actually an energetic body in there, and even a divine body in there. So getting more aware of that through meditation and visualization practices. And then the lover is about physical and sensual touch. So any practices that brings more pleasure into the body, whether that you can do this with a partner and just practice non-sexual touch, with caressing or holding and communicating how you like to be touched, where you like to be touched, what feels good, what doesn't, and really learning with your partner, how to communicate what gives us pleasure without having, orgasm as the goal, just really tuning in to what the body needs and what it feels and what feels right and what doesn't, and starting to communicate that with a partner would be a great practice, for the lover. And also emotional connecting with the heart. So any practice that connects you with the heart, whether that's a meditation, a humming exercise, or I like to do the loving kindness meditation, where you breathe in and out the heart and imagining nostrils in the center of your chest, and just, getting in the energy in and out the heart. So yeah, that's a few I can think of right now for each one that will help.
Thank you for sharing those.
You're welcome.
They sound great. When you said the piece about realizing you're more than just a physical body, I feel like I melted a little bit.
Yeah.
I was like, it made me think of how earlier you were sharing about when we were talking about the ego. You were sharing about how it's about connecting with oneness and with I think the word you said, or the phrase you said, was the fiber of life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that. And when you bring that up with the ego, it's like, of course that would quiet and soothe the ego a little bit, because in my opinion, when I connect to that, like, it's such a blissful experience. It's such a, like, the ego is very caught up with our survival, but when we connect with that, it's like, oh, like, I will always survive because I'm one with everything, and like my death is an illusion, and this body is technically an illusion too, and it just keeps going. Yeah, little random tangent there.
Yeah, no, but thank you for that tangent, because that's beautiful. And a way for me to connect with that was studying sacred geometry. And that's what reminded me when I say the fiber of life or the fabric of life, that's the image I had, But when you look into sacred geometry, that's the fabric. It literally is. You see that in everything. When you look, you slice an apple and you look inside, you look at plants, you look at, trees, fruit, everything, our eyes, our DNA, our cells, like the somatic. I don't know if you use cymatics when water and you put frequency under a plate with water and it gives you these mandalas and these interesting.
I've seen the putting water in a sound bowl, like a crystal bowl.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are all like, and sound is what connects the fabric together, actually frequency.
Ooh.
So it's just mind-blowing when you look at, and I visually saw it when I'm on plant medicine, for example, when I take psilocybin. You can actually see the visual of this fabric comes into being, and you can see it in the air. It's not just in objects. It's actually in the ether. It's around you. Every time you breathe, you see these fractals, and it's just we're intricately part of it. And as you said, then death is just another transition. You become another geometric pattern, and this body is just a vehicle for for something else to take us into other places. And you become so aware that you are so intrinsic to this fabric and you cannot really be apart from it. That it opens a whole new world of perception, right? And then it puts you in this place where actually all this suffering that I've got stuck in doesn't hold any weight anymore when I am connected to this fabric. And all those thoughts or the ego mind trying to convince you otherwise almost then seems trivial once you've realized who you really are and what you're part of. It becomes almost ridiculous.
It becomes comical a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. I always like to say humans are really funny because of that. Like, it's just really funny at times to just observe what we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a set of questions I like to ask toward the end. So I thought we would transition into that now.
Yeah.
The first question is, what does self-love mean to you?
What a beautiful question. Wow. Okay. That's a big one. I think self-love has, at least in my experience of, these past few years especially, has always been compassion. It's coming back to that feeling that even though there are moments where I feel like I might be less than or small or low self-worth or any area, where you feel like there's no self-love at all in those spaces. What brought me back, what really got me back to a place where actually I am worthy, I am deserving, is having that compassion and compassion to oneself, but also not identifying with the actual thought that you are or the belief that you have about yourself. And again, it helped me connect to that fabric of life, because I can then look at that part of myself that feels small or hurt or or not good enough, and wrap it up in that fabric and say, actually, you're okay to feel this way, and I understand why you feel this way, and I'm gonna love you anyway, because you are still part of this, a beautiful fabric of being, and you are definitely needed in this world, and you are part of it. So there's an element of radical self-compassion and knowing or a remembering really of who I really am. And that's beyond any beliefs of myself, beyond any expectations from others, beyond any judgments, beyond any responsibilities, beyond any roles or, any job titles or any possessions I have. Really just take away everything and just really fall into your essence. And when you realize who you truly are without all that, then there's this deep sense of falling in love with yourself, because you're falling in love with all of creation. And when you realize that you are part of it, then there is this, big heart opening experience where you're like, oh, wow, so that's who I really am, and all these beliefs I had about me not being good enough and, me being judged or anything like that, again, seems trivial. So I guess to me, it's then a mix of self-compassion, knowing a remembering of who you are under all the layers, and a connection, a realization, or an awareness of what you are part of. That helps me, I guess.
Wow, I can't wait to listen back to this piece of this conversation. That was so beautiful. Oh, I love that. It sounds so sweet and so grounding as well. Thank you for that.
Thank you for the question. It's a beautiful question. And
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So the next question is, what makes you feel the most grounded?
Yeah, so it's my body. So connecting to my body makes me feel more grounded. So I like to connect to my spine especially. There's something about it that is like a conduit. It's I connect a lot to earth energy when I have the bottom of my spine touch the earth. So whether, I'm sitting in meditation position and my coccyx is in connection to the earth. I like to do it outside if I can, when I'm sitting directly on the grass, but it can be anywhere. And then I connect to the top of my head, my crown, and just feel, the almost like a white light coming through, and then bringing that white light down into the heart and raising the earth energy up into the heart. So I feel really, it's like this rod, I guess, of centeredness that helps me feel that I am connected to the earth, but also I've got this connection to the sky, or to the heavens, if you like to call it that way. But then pulling it into the heart space. So for me, the heart space, actually our hearts have a brain. There's neurons in there that suggest now with research there's actually brain molecules or brain matter in our hearts. So it's really it's really grounding for me to connect to that and to really give that energy and space, and to know that it's my center point, so that I am bringing in the earth energy and the sky energy into there. And that's what helps me feel more grounded. And when I think of grounded, I think of more being centered, being really in myself. That I'm not lost in thought, or lost in some kind of, unhelpful or really chaotic energies, that I'm bringing back to center and back into the heart. But I fuel my heart with the energy of the earth through the bottom of my spine, and the energy of the heavens through the crown. And that what energizes it for me is this visualization process of bringing it all in from both directions and feeling into that light of the spine, and then just breathing in and out from the heart. And that really makes me feel not only grounded, but this inner power, it's like this, I feel like I'm radiating right now. And it's, I feel like nothing can knock me off from that space. So it really makes me feel solid when I'm doing that practice.
I love that.
Mm.
And again, I love how everything shows up everywhere. Like how we talked about the archetypes show up everywhere, with this mixing of earth and sky. Like it even shows up with how, like, what the heart is like taking in oxygen from the sky, and then like giving out carbon dioxide that then like the trees breathe in. And it's like this ever evolving and like always happening mixing and exchanging. So
yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful.
The next question is, what is your favorite part about being a woman?
The first thing that popped into mind is multiple orgasms.
Yes. I love that.
But I'm actually training man to be multi-orgasmic too, so it's not just only a woman thing anymore.
Yes.
Yeah. But to me, I guess, I just love the power we have in our bodies. Like, there's something about our bodies specifically. First of all, there is actually, when you look up reflexology and its teachings, there's actually an energetic line between the cervix and the heart. And we have that highway, it exists in our bodies. We also have the ability to release DMT from our pineal gland when we are orgasming.
I didn't know that.
Another fun fact. Yes, wow. So I recently learned this actually. So when a woman, when she reaches her first orgasm, that's just the grounding stage, right? She's prepped to experience then several more after that. So, and again, this is very different from how men experience orgasms. So once there's one, and then there's possibility for 2 and 3 and up to 7 or 10. But the more of this orgasmic pleasure is experienced in the body, the more access there is for this DMT to be released. So DMT is a natural hallucinogenic that is stored in our pineal gland. But it's stored there. We don't really feel or experience any psychedelic experience unless it's actually released. So you might have come across women who, experience multiple orgasms that describe feelings of, euphoria, or even have psychedelic experiences because they've had this chemical released from their pineal gland. And some women might spontaneously burst into singing. Some might make some, incredible sounds or move in a way they've never moved before. And it's magic, it's a really a magic chemical, which is also found in ayahuasca, for example. So it is a very potent chemical that is accessible to us through orgasm and pleasure, which is a fun fact and a beautiful experience to have in this body in being a woman. So that's another thing. And yeah, I just love also the nurturing energy of being in company with other women. It's a beautiful feeling of being able to really with other integrated women, right? Who are within their centered within their heart. There's that beautiful energy of really letting go and being held and being seen and being cared for. I think that's very beautiful. And when we can offer it in our integrity to our loved ones, it's a beautiful gift to give. And it's something that I really enjoy giving to my partner, for example. And what makes me really, grateful to be a woman in a way. I'm not saying men cannot be nurturing, not at all, that they all have that within them to be that. It's just something that I've experienced more when I was in a group of women. When I'm in a group of men, I feel safe. There's that protection energy, right? There's that we got you kind of energy, and I like that. I love that. With women, it's more I see you, I feel you. There's that. And so I offer my partner that energy. I see you, I feel you, and he's like, I got you. I have you. I have this. So it's a beautiful, play of those. Yeah.
Yeah, what you just described about being in the presence of other integrated women is why I love, love, love hosting women's circles. I find it so powerful, and even attending them, like it's just so powerful to just be heard, to just be heard and just be a witness. Like there's no like fixing or advice giving. You're just being held and heard and seen. And like there's so much freedom to just like allow whatever comes up to come up. Yeah,
that's beautiful. I wish I was part of your women's groups.
I wish you were too. I did a in-person one with my Crown Collective last month, and it was just beautiful. Like we did this breathwork exercise where we like brought in pleasure, and just being the facilitator and like watching everyone with their eyes closed, just like really going for it. I'm just like, wow. Wow. Yeah. So for people who are listening who made it all the way to the end, thank you for being here. I would love to give you the mic to share about how people can follow you, what kind of work you offer, how they can work with you, anything you have going on, all the things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So where you can find me, I'm on Instagram mostly these days. I use Facebook a bit, but not as much. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Nats Alchemy Coaching. So that's NATSALCHEMY coaching. So that's my tag on Instagram. I also have a website, so that's the same at natsalchemycoaching.com. Right now, so I've got two sides of my work. There is I'm doing somatic work mostly. So somatic work is really coming back to the body, right? Really uncovering what the body holds in order to process any stuck emotion, anything that's really holding you back from getting what you desire. And it's mostly for people who feel that something's missing in their life. So they might have everything, or the illusion of everything sometimes, where you might have, you've got the job, the career, the relationship, the friendships, and everything seems kind of great on the outside, but there's this feeling internally that something might be missing. And then there's that guilt, right? Why do I feel this way? I've got everything in life. And there's that feeling of a disconnection. And what's beautiful about somatic work is it really brings you into the body to inquire and to really feel what that disconnection is and how it can bring you back into connection and bring you into a life that feels more fulfilled. So it's a journey we take, usually lasting 10 weeks, where we talk about your desire, where you want to go, what do you want to bring in, talk about what are you feeling right now and what is keeping you in that state, like what's holding you back, and then working through understanding what your body holds in order to come closer, if not achieve that desire at the end. So that's kind of the work I do right now with people. And then, as we mentioned in this conversation, I am also working with men specifically on sacred sexuality. So the work I do with men is really to connect back to their healthy power, to connect with freedom, that inner freedom, and to make that connection between their sexuality and their heart. So it's about embracing the urges that might feel shameful, like the urge to fuck, for example, or the urge to kill. These have been, suppressed within the male psyche for understandable reasons. When they are in the shadow part, can cause a lot of harm. And therefore men don't feel safe to express that. However, it is a primal urge that every man has. So it's about connecting those urges to the heart so you can bring more love into that. And then connecting your sexual energy with your heart and loving energy and your mind as well. So it's this 3 pillars of mind, heart, penis, connecting all 3 so that men can experience, tremendous love, but also have that warrior, ravishing energy, and then also have that king presence and authority, be in touch with their intuition, and be that lover that is in touch with their emotions and in touch with their lover's emotions as well. So again, it's a way, I would almost say, like the initiation process that perhaps men have not received in their lifetime. It's an opportunity to take this journey and really get that initiation so that you can work through the shadows and work through maybe any inner child, redefine masculinity. So really understanding where they learned about being masculine in the media and their family at school, what made them think what it means to be a man from all these external sources, looking at them and then redefining it for themselves. What do they want to mean to be a man? And really feeling into that. And then bringing into bringing the sexual energy into that, playing with archetypes as well. So again, it's a beautiful journey I take men on. Again, it's a one-on-one experience where they get in touch with these pieces, do the work on the shadow part, and then come into integrity and have that initiation process where they can move out into the world with having all these archetypes in integrity and be that amazing, that amazing man that everyone is drawn to and is magnetized towards. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Perfect. I'll include all of the links that you mentioned in the caption or show notes. And thank you so much for this conversation. It was very witchy.
Yes.
I loved how witchy it was.
Brilliant. I love how witchy it was too.